All right, so this is the third video in the video series to answer the question is, what are the top 10 things I should know if I'm getting ready to get into goats, or what do I need to know if I'm getting into goats? So dietary management, feeding. Feeding is a fairly simple subject, especially if you're raising a specific kind. It gets a little more difficult when you have does, you have wethers, you have breeding bucks, and all that different stuff. But I'm going to talk about them all really just in two categories: does, and I'm going to talk about wethers. And I'm not going to talk about the birthing and all that nutritional stuff because that's all in courses, and I have other videos on that. So the two things you need to know: if you're raising wethers, you have castrated male goats. Remember, their largest health concern is urinary calculi. They're really easy to feed if you always just feed them grass hay. Now, the best way is to test your hay and know what its calcium to phosphorus ratio is, because when those are out of balance, that's what gives them urinary calculi. You want to make sure you're 2-to-1 or 3-to-1, calcium 2 or 3, phosphorus 1. And with a simple hay test, you'll be able to find out where you are in terms of how those two numbers relate. And it's a simple, like, $19 test, send it into Ward Laboratories. The other component to wethers that's very critical is their mineral, and you're going to want to feed an open mineral. And the other important component is water. Now, a lot of homeowners are on wells, and I have a whole video explaining to you about this urinary calculi, so I'm brushing over it. You can actually search on my YouTube channel, urinary calculi, everything you should know about it, and it's like a 14-minute explanation teaching you and educating you about urinary calculi. Now, I do want to say too, don't forget that we detail all of this information in the courses in the Goat Club, and you can find those on patgoat.com. You need to learn how to raise goats, and we're here to teach you. But again, back on wethers, we're just simple program: grass hay, good mineral, and good water. And the water is really important if you're on a well to test it. If you develop hard water stains around your faucets, or you have hard water, that is putting calcium most likely in the water. You should do a water test to determine it, and it's really easy to get a water test. But again, having no calcium in your water or soft water makes all that equation work perfect. If you have hard water, the best way to do it is to filter it with an RV filter or fill out of another source and take water out of the ratio, out of the mix, because it's too hard to tell how much water each wether is drinking each day to try to balance it. You just want to take water out of the equation, feed them good high quality grass hay and a good mineral, and most wethers will be really healthy based on that diet. But get good grass hay. Grass hay is really low in protein traditionally, so if you buy cheap grass hay, a lot of times you're buying low protein content, and I like to buy grass hay that's in that like 11 to 12% protein category, and a lot of it is like 7, 8, 9. So make sure it's worth testing your hay. Now, and I keep pointing over here because that's where I keep my wethers. Now, if we're going to talk about does, my does, when they're in milk or they're making babies, I'm feeding about 5/8 or 3/4 alfalfa and 1/4 grass hay. I like a little grass hay in the mix. It's good for their rough forage. I buy grass hay that has a lot of other things in it so they get some variance in their diet. And then when I put these does in the last month of pregnancy and going into having kids and growing kids, I'm feeding almost solely alfalfa because they're also making milk and they need lots of calcium. So I'm feeding straight alfalfa during the kidding, during the last month of pregnancy, and then into taking care of the kid and then being milked. So does are actually quite a bit easier to take care of that way because you can get away with things like high protein feed like alfalfa. But again, I recommend if you're not putting big demands on your does and they're not trying to have babies or be milked, you can get away with more grass hay and not quite as much alfalfa, but they get along really, really well on alfalfa, and I like to mix in a little grass hay. So. And they need mineral too, of course, and they're not as worried about urinary calculi. They still develop stones, but because they have a big urethra, they don't get plugged up like the boys do. So that is our third video in the series. There are lots of people that watch these videos that know a ton about goats too. And we'd love to hear your feedback as well for the new folks watching this video. So write a comment, tell us what you think about it, elaborate on some points if you find that necessary or would be helpful. And again, ask questions if you're new to this, because again, this is a community and we're here to kind of help people. And what I would say is just don't ever hesitate to reach out. I'm still reachable. We have the Goat Club membership, we have the courses. I still answer the email and the phone. So if you need help, don't hesitate to reach out. So Mark Warnke, the Goat Guy, signing out.